everyone, welcome back to Reading with Tatiana. Today I'm doing my monthly April wrap-ups for 2024 and I had a pretty good reading month. I had one book that was on my to-be read for years and it was just a really heavy and really long book that was putting off and off, but I dedicated some time to read it, so I'm glad I got that off my list finally. And I've read some other books, some were hits and some were misses. So the first book I read that actually started back in March and took up a good chunk of March and a good chunk of April. And one of those books where when I finally read it after, I was like, so this has been on my list for since like 2020 or 2021. I don't know, a long time. It's A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I gave it a 4 out of 5, but I felt very conflicted just because if you've read this book, it's so freaking heavy and like how can so much happen to one person. However, on the flip side, I gave it a good review or a good rating because the writing is really well. Like the way Hanya writes is really eloquent and reads really well, and it just gets you really sucked in. So if you don't know this book, A Little Life, it basically follows the story of four young men who meet in college, and we follow their lives for decades up until their old age. Even though there's four main characters, I would say one of them, Jude, stands out the most, and he's the character where it's just like, how can so much awful stuff happen to one person from birth until their death? And it's just so heavy and so dark. Yet, however, in this book, you find these intricacies of relationships and friendships that persevere for years and how much people can sacrifice and give up and provide and endure for each other. It's just really beautiful, but it's a lot to read. Like this book on my e-reader, I think it's like over 800 pages, but I think the actual book itself is like really thick. Oh no, I actually read a physical book. It was like really thick, probably 700, 800 pages. And I had to take breaks because even though I really enjoyed the writing, it was so great to read, so beautiful to read, and so well written, I had to take breaks because the material was so heavy. Like honestly, the things that happen to Jude over and over again, I'm like, does the author, who's a woman, hate men? Because that's what it kind of feels like. Either way, I think it's a book that you should read if you want to, but it's not for everyone, and be prepared to have a lighter, happier book to read after it. One thing I really enjoyed about this book is that it had a strong emphasis on the importance of friendship versus just romantic relationships, and how friendships can really be, I guess, like anchoring parts of your life to really ground you and hold you, and not everything has to be about finding a romantic sexual partner. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this book. The next book I read was Sour Heart by Zhang. I gave this a 2 out of 5. I really enjoyed the premise of this book, which kind of got me interested. Is it basically covers different stories of immigrants that recently immigrated to America from China, and how they kind of intertwine, and how their experience can vary so differently in America. So I really liked it because it's basically, you see all these characters and you see their perspective, but they kind of like overlap. So like there's one story where this family lives in a house with a bunch of other Chinese families, and later on there's a perspective of one of the girls who stay in that house as well. So you see characters coming in and out of each other's lives. But I just felt the writing style was not that great, and I also didn't enjoy any of the characters' development throughout the story. I usually love historical fiction. I also love immigrant stories, but this one just fell flat for me. I kind of wonder if maybe a lot of the main characters were teenage girls, so maybe as an older woman I found it hard to relate to, but I just found that I didn't enjoy the style of writing nor the characters' development in America. The next one I read was Swamp Story by Dave Barry. I gave this a 4 out of 5. I love the cover for this book, and this book, I don't know what genre to put it in. I basically had no idea what to expect. And like its namesake, Swamp Story, it's set in Florida. I feel like every stereotype of Florida is in this book. I don't really want to ruin it. Basically, there's a girl called Jessie, and she's from somewhere else in the U.S. She meets Slater, falls in love. Slater convinces her to move to the swamplands in Florida, but basically he becomes a 180. He's like a jerk, and he's kind of a loser, and they get pregnant. She has a baby, so she feels stuck there. And one day she finds a piece of gold, and this is like her way out. But because she found this gold, it's Florida in the swamplands, so everyone wants a piece of it, and things just unravel really quickly, and it's just so hilarious. And I really hope they make a late night comedy of this movie because it was just so unhinged, but in like a fun way. The last book I read is Listen for a Lie by Amy Tintera. I gave this a 3 out of 5. This is kind of a classic domestic, set in like domestic suburban life, small town, murder mystery thriller. Someone dies, you kind of want to figure out who it is. I really enjoy it. And then I think if you like this genre murder mystery, I think you'll really enjoy it too. I really enjoy it, especially because there's like a podcast style of it. So basically, this murder happens in a small town 5 years ago, and basically, this current podcaster wants to like investigate this case that went cold 5 years ago because the police wasn't able to figure out who the murderer was. So this guy goes back to the small town, interviews all these people, and it's kind of a podcast style, and he interviews all these different people in the small town. You as a reader kind of get these hints and realize things at the same time that a podcaster does, and you kind of try to figure out like what's going on. And also the suspected murderer, she has no memory of that night as well, so you also hear her perspective. And I just really enjoyed this book. The only reason I gave it a 3 out of 5 instead of a 4 or 5 out of 5 is because even though I like this genre and like murder mystery whodunit, I felt like the small town stereotype of everyone sleeps, cheats with each other, I didn't enjoy. I felt like all the characters were kind of like awful people, and I didn't enjoy that aspect of it, and I definitely wouldn't recommend this book unless you specifically enjoy this genre. Those were the 4 books I read for the month of April. If you've read any of them, love to hear what you thought down below. I also love to hear what you read this past month in the comments down below, especially Angela, who always comments. And I'll see you guys next month. Bye.